So here's an entertaining one that's not going to shock anybody that watches this content regularly. About a guy, he's in his mid-30s. He's been married to his wife for 5 years, 2 little kids. And recently he found out that his wife had a very creative entrepreneurial way of paying off her college loans as she went along in college. What that may be, you ask? Well, take a wild guess. It involved other dues in exchange of money. And he finds out that that number during college was well over 300 dudes. 300 dudes, which she neglected to mention she was in that line of work. And, to add insult to injury, she engaged in some videos that are now in circulation for the world to see. His wife, mother of his kids. And as you can imagine, she's having a meltdown over this. Afraid he's going to leave her. She's so sorry, that type of crap. Let me go over here, guys, to show you, again, the world we're in right now, Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0, and why you must do your homework on the gal you decide to get involved with and marry one day, because the sugar and spice and everything nice type of gal you think she is may not necessarily be the case. And then next thing you know, you end up being married to one of them who you never give the time of day prior. Title: My wife worked as an escort while in college. It says, my wife, a 34-year-old female, and I have been married for almost 5 years. We have good jobs, a nice house, and we have 2 young kids. We've known each other since middle school, and we dated on and off through high school. We've been apart for several months when she went off to school in different parts of the country, while I went to a state school not far from home. We saw each other occasionally during those years when she was home for the summers and Christmas, and we hooked up a couple of times. But we kept it casual and didn't have much contact otherwise while she was away. I saw other people during that time period. After college, she moved back to the area. We both lived in the same city, so we eventually started seeing each other once again. It became serious, and we ended up getting engaged and got married a few years later. She is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen and is my best friend and the love of my life. Well, let's see how he feels at the end of the story here. So, here's the deal. They met early on, small town, no doubt, junior high, high school. During college, they see each other on occasion, hook up, But she gets out of college and is ready to settle. And who does she go back to? This guy. The guy she knows darn well, had his number way back in the day. Notice there was no interest in a relationship during college because, well, you're going to see what she was doing in college. So they get married. No mention of her other job. The weekend before last, we had our COVID bubble couple, my wife's best friend, her husband, over for dinner and had a few drinks, one too many. The conversation moved to the subject of student debt and saving for college for our kids. The husband said he's still paying on his student loans since his parents didn't help pay for much, and my wife blurted out something like, "Yeah, mine didn't either," and she immediately went dark red. Now, I knew that she doesn't have any student loans, and I had assumed her parents paid most of it off. So he's thinking, obviously she should have pretty big numbers, but it's all gone. The parents had to pay for it, because how else would she have paid for it? She also had a job waiting tables, or so I thought, but there was no way she would have been able to pay all that off of school doing that. I noticed her friend looked very uncomfortable, and they were exchanging looks, but I let it be. And the conversation moved on to other subjects, and they eventually left. So the friend obviously knows what this guy's about to find out. The friends always know, and they keep it secret. After they left, I asked my wife, what was that all about? And she immediately started crying. Hobag Handbook, Chapter 2. Start with the waterworks, wear him down, then deliver the bombshell. Sobbing, she told me she was, and I'm not making this up, so sorry that she hadn't told me before, but that while she was in college, she worked as an escort to pay herself through school. Oh, gee, I forgot to mention that when you proposed to me and before we got married. It completely slipped my mind. She had wanted to tell me when we got back together, and she said, but she was too ashamed and thought I would have dumped her if she did. Well, any self-respecting guy would have, but she was selfish and was thinking of herself. It's called lying by omission. And I thought I would have dumped her, blah, 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 and had just, so she decided she had just left it all behind while she was getting it in the behind. She said I was completely caught off guard by this. I asked her how she even got into that, and she said she was introduced into an agency by another student that she befriended at school, and it went from there. Pay attention to who your girl hangs out with. In the beginning, it had only been once or twice a month, but since she needed the money, she had done it some more, but seemed vague and avoided telling me how much. Of course, she is trickle truth. She's giving you just enough, and if you dig some more, then you get more truth. You're not getting the full story, man. I pressed her on how much she had been doing it, and eventually she said she's done a couple times a week for the last 3 years of school. Okay, so let's say 3 years, 52 weeks in a year. We'll make it 50. We'll give her 2 weeks off for Christmas, and she caught a cold or caught something else, God forbid. So 50 weeks a year, 2 times a week, that's 100 times a year, times 3 years, 300. And we know darn well there's no way in hell that's the actual number. So we're saying bare minimum 300 dudes. But we're not done yet. He says, so that's hundreds of times, starting when she was still a teenager. I was so shocked. She cried and cried and cried and asked if I could forgive her. And she said she'd been fully tested before we got back together and had tested regularly while working. I said it wasn't cheating. Since we weren't together at the time, so there isn't anything to forgive. Smack. Yeah, you weren't together, but the point is that she married you knowing darn well that if she would have told you ahead of time that you might have left her. That's not, you can't forgive that. So that's what she was cheating in a sense, but a different type. Cheated you out of what you wanted to have. I tried to console her, but she kept on crying uncontrollably. Yeah, that's the trick. Bawl their eyes out until the guy feels bad enough that he'll just, that's okay, they're there, honey. I asked if there was anything else she wanted to tell me, and she cried some more, and eventually said yes, she had also done PORN. So it's bad enough 300 plus dudes, and 300 is probably the beginning, but then now there's videos out there, potentially her online, that, you know what I mean, maybe the kids one day might see, maybe the kids' friends might see one day. I was like, what? And she told me her agency had referred her to some PORN company in Florida, and they flew her down here for a week. She claimed she did 4 scenes and flew back home. She had only done this one time, she says, and she kept crying and crying and crying. One time, really? Sure. And I was completely shell-shocked at this point. But I did my best to calm her down and said, it's okay, I still love you, and so on. Eventually, she stopped crying and went to sleep without another word. Well, I didn't sleep very much. I bet those tears just dried away like a quick rain in Death Valley, and she was fine. Notice the uncontrollable cry, because she does darn well. She makes a big enough scene, like a little kid, crying and crying and crying, crying, you know, then they can just whoosh, turn it off. She has his number. We didn't talk about it the next day, and the next day after that, and she asked me if I was okay and if I wanted to talk. But I said no. I don't really feel like talking about it. The hell's to talk about? There's been more sausage through her than a freaking Oscar Mayer wiener plant. I can't picture my life without her. Smack. Dude, really? You've been together 5 years. Married 5 years, and you weren't together long before that, before you got married. But I'm having a very hard time with this, to be honest. It's been more than a week, and I can't stop thinking about it. Dude, you're never going to stop thinking about it. I don't know her at all. I keep thinking about those 4 scenes, and they were probably still out there for anyone to see. I'd love to know what was going on during those 4 scenes. Did those 4 scenes involve 4 dudes that were inserting their parts in her lady parts all over her? I kept thinking about her going to hotels and meeting random guys. I want to know more, but I don't think I can handle knowing more. But I cannot get it out of my head. That's all I think about. We haven't had SCX since the conversation. Shocker. I want to move on. I want to get past this, but how? She didn't cheat on me, but it almost feels like she did. I can't help it. What can I do? Anyone else experience something like this? How did you deal with it? And he then continues on saying, thank you for all your thoughts. I really appreciate most of the comments. I need a break from all this right now. It's just too much, and I'm at work, actually. So there you go, guys. The moral of the story is, you really need to do your homework on your girl. It's at the point now that guys need to hire a private investigator prior to getting really, really serious. and occasionally one when they are serious. It's ridiculous. But again, this, yeah, okay, fine, they weren't together when this is going on, to what he knows, right? But you gotta understand that the SEX to her is transactional after all this, and I really gotta wonder if ever there was anything else going on after they got married and got back together. Who knows? He has to question everything now, and you can't have a relationship without trust. And to make matters worse, they have 2 kids together. So if they didn't have any kids, it'd be easy for him to say, you know what, the hell with this. But now he has 2 kids, right? And of course, he doesn't want to break up the family and everything, but you can't be married to someone like this because the SEX is transactional. She can't pair bond with this guy. I think she got back with him after college when she'd been so run through she could barely walk, and knew darn well this guy would take her back. They'd get back together. She found her nice guy, and that's that. But these things don't go away. They're going to come back, and I guarantee you some way it'll come out online. The next thing he's going to do is start searching online. He's going to be dying to know that. So he's never going to let this go, and it's just a bad place to be. So people need to be honest, both men and women, when they get together with somebody about their past and what's going on, because it's not fair to the other person. And I don't blame this guy at all for kicking her to the curb, walking away. He'll take a hit, of course, but still. And he'll get a lot of hate on him, like, it shouldn't matter. But that's what she did, was lying by omission. And she admitted that she pretty much thought that he wouldn't marry her or take her back. Duh. Now, a few comments here before I wrap this up. One guy says, it kind of seems like she waited to the point that you were so in love with her, so you wouldn't care anymore. If she thought you wouldn't care, she wouldn't have been upfront about it. However, that's not the thing that bothers me. The thing that bothers me is that she didn't tell you until she had to because she slipped up. The situation begs 2 questions. Would she have ever told you, and what else could she be possibly hiding? I hope you make the right decision for you, but you should take your blinders off for a second and look at this from the perspective of a different man. All right, exactly. Another guy says here, she didn't cheat on you, but she kept a massive secret from you. I see this as a trust issue, not a life choices issue. Not telling your spouse you screwed hundreds of strangers for cash and starred in POR, videos is not okay, given that it can affect your life too. It's not her actions back then that are wrong. Well, we beg to differ. It's that she had hid something of that magnitude from you for so long. She made choices but didn't want to live with the consequences, so she buried them so you couldn't make any informed decisions early in your relationship. She waited for years and until you had kids and were more tied down before telling you. Not only that, but she would talk about it with other people, just not you. Right. Other people know. This is not something people will ever get over, and others won't. There's not a single right or wrong choice here for you to make. That's only deciding which choices is right for you and your family. Exactly. And there's a whole other issue that, she never told him, ever. And the thing never came up. Maybe she never would have talked about it. And oftentimes people wait until the other person's in love with them before they drop the bombshell. But anyhow, guys, Saab Gomorrah 2.0.